Good morning. It is December 5th at 9:30 a.m. We're here for a negotiation session. Present for the city, Chief.
Ryan Hearn, Fire Chief.
Jared Johnson, City Attorney.
Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director.
Jordan Van Avery, Local 187 President.
Scott Lockhart, Local 187.
Austin White, Local 187.
Sam Morris, Local 187 Treasurer.
Adam Davis, Local 187.
All right. Thank you for meeting today. The city would like to propose an MOU to our current contract, and Jared has the first section pulled up for us. It's under Article 21 for the staffing policy, specifically regarding staffing levels. Chief?
Well, as you know, we've been working with the county, and a part of our FY26 budget proposal was to increase staffing to address ambulance service in South County. We've discussed various different models, everything from a peak hours staffing to a 24/7 type staffing on certain shifts, and we're now at the point where due to out-of-service times and other demands that we feel like trying to achieve 24/7 staffing on a full-time basis, 7 days a week, is the option that we'd like to go with. And so we're here to kind of discuss the ramifications of hiring full-time staffing to accommodate South County.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
So we've kind of played around with some language, and I wanted to talk about it before we write it down to make sure we kind of, like, I'm saying it the right way. And it's a lot of work to start passing papers around. So roughly, it would look like during the term of this agreement, staffing may be increased to meet the demands of the ambulance service. This increase is contingent on appropriations by Bannock County to cover the cost of additional employees. Should appropriations fail to fully fund the new positions, there will be a reduction in personnel following the terms of this agreement until such appropriations can cover the additional costs. We don't want to specify head count because we want flexibility to adjust depending on how much money we get from the county or that they get in.
Yeah, and I can kind of clarify. So one of the thoughts and the concerns, first of all, this is something that's really important to the county. And so during the budget process, they were willing to give us additional revenue, some related to user fees, which is part of our normal budget. So they increased that amount, increasing kind of the anticipated revenue. And then also the second portion of the increase, another portion of the increase came from GEMT money, which is part of Medicaid expansion and that ground emergency medical transport program, which this will be the first year that we report on that. And we are anticipating revenue in May of 2026. But as of yet, that hasn't gone through the auditing process. And so we're working on an estimate of what we anticipate to bring in. Those two numbers together, the amount of additional revenue and the GEMT funding, represent about 30% of the money that would be needed for this additional staffing. And so if something were to happen and we didn't reach our revenue estimate, or for some reason that GEMT program changed, then we may not realize the revenue that we're anticipating, and that might result in a budget shortfall.
Sorry.
So would the intent be to not hire until we have a for sure?
No, I think we intend to hire fairly early and be prepared to start our academy on time in our normal springtime academy rotation. I think we should by then have a pretty firm number, although we're not anticipating the actual payment to come in until May. We're still waiting to hear from auditing. Our initial report was favorable and looked like it would be well within the numbers that we were expecting. This is just our first time going through this process, and so we haven't heard from the auditing company whether or not there's any additional information needed or whether that number is going to be reduced at all.
Okay.
But the plan would be to still hire for full-time, and we think we'd be able to make it through FY '26. We're just trying to ensure that we don't go into FY '27 in a short position due to some unforeseen circumstance with one of those two factors that I mentioned.
In the instance that there is a budget shortfall, what does that look like? Could you explain that a little bit more in terms of the reduction?
Well, I guess we would be open to, it would depend on how much of a reduction it was and whether we could potentially cut back in other areas for a period of time
Okay.
to accomplish that. We could potentially discuss, everything from potentially not filling a position due to attrition and covering that position with overtime. We would look at all options on the table until we felt like we were back to a position where we could bring that back up to full-time staffing.
So would a layoff be the direction if we fell short?
Yes.
That could be one option. Again, it would depend on how short we were, what the forecast looks like for FY '27, potentially even FY '28. If this GMT program were to go away completely, that's about one FTE that we're anticipating. So we're just trying to both be aggressive to move forward and accelerate this solution and get to full-time staffing because there is the need, but we're also recognizing that we're anticipating funding that we haven't yet received. And so we're just trying to be cautious and conservative.
Does that have any other questions?
No.
No questions from us, no further questions.
So that's the main issue that we're at the table. But because we're here, can you go to section, Article 18, Section B?
I can. Let's see if my computer can.
Well, mine's still restarting, so it's still better than mine. So I am aware that the Northwest Firefighter Trust is looking at other alternate options for their VIBA vendor. I think you currently are with BPAS. I sit on the HRA VIBA board, and I know we've set up a special fund for people to move from BPAS over to HRA VIBA. And I know that we've had 5 or 6 entities move in out of BPAS. I reached out to Jordan to see if you guys were interested in making that move. If you are interested in making the move, the city would be willing to administer your plan while you are on the same carrier as the city. However, the city's selection of who our VIBA carrier will be city-driven. And if we were to change and you did not move, then you would then be in charge of managing your plan again. But with that give, I have an ask. That's kind of hypothetical at this point. As you're aware, we've had some turnover in finance, and we have a new CFO starting on Monday. We do have a new payroll team in place, and they are excellent. But one of the things that we've identified as a problem with payroll processing is the pay period closes on a Friday, and we process payroll the following Wednesday. That's when they run payroll. So they process payroll for over 600 employees on Monday and Tuesday and part of the day Wednesday. So checks are cut or deposited on Friday. We would like the option if during the duration of this contract, the city of Pocatello adjusts its payroll processing timeline and paycheck issuance date, the city would be required to provide a minimum of 30 days notice in writing. The city will be restricted in its payroll processing change to no more than 7 days difference from the current to the proposed. So right now it would be right now you have a 1 week delay, that would move to a 2 week delay. That's gonna be one pay period where people go 3 weeks between paychecks, and then it will go back on a 2 week cycle so that we can make that shift. So it's something we're considering, obviously with the new CFO coming on, that's gonna be part of the discussion. It takes 6, 7 months for us to prep to do something like that. I haven't talked about this anywhere else in the city, so I'm sure anyone watching is their hair's on fire. I don't know if we're going to do it, but I do need language in place because it is a change from our current process. And so we wanted you to be aware we are considering that. So that is what I need for us to administer your VIBA plan if you were to move. So that's my ask.
Can you talk me through a little bit of payroll math just so I understand it? Because I don't speak payroll math. That would mean that we would incur only 1 week of pay for existing employees for that next pay period.
So if we closed the pay period on the 1st, normally you would be paid on the 8th. Instead, we'd end on the 1st, you would be paid on the 15th. There would just be a 1 week delay in processing. It would still be for the same amount of time. It would still be the same pay periods, still the same FLSA cycles. The check cut date will just be 1 Friday later.
Okay,
So no change to FLSA, no change to how many hours. It's just the date the check is cut.
okay.
And then after that first time, it would then be back on the 2 week cycle that we were used to.
Okay. And then, correct me on this as well, if you have a new hire, there is a chance that they could go a month without a paycheck.
So I've worked at the university and I've worked in high tech. This is the only place I've ever seen that processes payroll this fast. And that's where we run into issues with payroll, is they simply do not have time. Employees have, I believe, until Monday afternoon. Department heads have until Tuesday morning. That means payroll has 600 people to pay in like 10 work hours. It's prone to errors, and we're trying to get that cleaned up a little bit sharper. I'm gonna guess that we need to caucus, so you can go talk about this. And then if you're interested, we can take another caucus and I'll draft up some language for you guys to consider, but I know you're gonna have some talking points. So I didn't wanna, drag the cart down the hill if we're still standing at the top.
I guess before we do that, are there any significant differences that you know of between BPAS, like fees and stuff, versus the HRA VBA?
HRA VIBA, I know their fee structure is less.
Okay. Are there any other significant like advantages or changes?
Well, I'm on the board, so I'm kind of biased.
Okay.
If you're enrolled in like the city's HSA or FSA, then it stacks with so you only have one debit card. It would come out of what you elect and pay in, and then it would come out of your VIBA funds. So you're down to one card, one access point. That's one of the big selling points. The trust is also worth $1.2 billion at this point. The growth has been pretty strong. We just know that there's been some issues with BPAS customer service, and that some of the investment options, there's been some struggles with.
Okay.
All right. Guys, you have more questions?
Do not.
All right, it's 9:43. Back at 10:21 a.m.
Okay, so after some discussion, we'll start with the BPAS and payroll change. Just a couple of things that we would like to see if possible. You said 30 days notice for a change. Our preference would be a little bit longer than that. 90 days was the suggestion, just so that we can give some of our members some time to prepare for going a little bit longer without a paycheck.
Okay.
Another point that we talked about was maybe instead of starting the new hires on the first day of the pay period, maybe start them mid-pay period so that they don't have to go an entire month without a paycheck. Might make it a little bit easier on them, not having to go 4 weeks. They would just be going 3 weeks instead without any money. We realize it wouldn't be a full paycheck, but you would at least be getting them a little bit of money sooner, being that, maybe they're moving from somewhere and they have to come here to get an apartment or whatever, just easing up the burden on them a little bit for the new hires. And then along with the switch from BPS to HRA, a point of clarification would be, how would the transfer from BPAS to HRA be handled? Would that be on us to handle that, or?
We don't have access to your BPAS, so you would have to initiate the transfer.
Okay.
Once it was into HRA Viva, then we could administer.
Okay,
So I need some I didn't understand the new hire thing.
okay.
Give me a crayon. Someone explain that so I understand a little better.
I think with our current 1 week delay in payroll processing, like a new hire, worst case scenario, may go 3 weeks without a paycheck. And we're just trying to think of a way to maybe ensure that that doesn't change, and we don't go that 4 weeks for a new hire, just because, like Jordan was saying, someone who's maybe moving to town, they're obviously starting a new job at the lowest pay level. That extra week could be just that much extra burden on them that maybe they would consider not taking a job. Retention or recruitment might be more difficult. Just trying to ensure that we aren't extending that potential delay. And it wouldn't really change anything other than just specifying that when we start an academy, when we have that new hire date, maybe instead of doing it this Monday, we're going to do it the following Monday, just to ensure that, and we give them that date with plenty of time for them to give their notice at their previous job, and they can keep their finances more level, hopefully. It's a small thing, but
Do we have I know we have I believe it's in the contract where we end the academy on the first day of a new pay period because of the change between steps. But I'm not sure that we've delineated that they have to start on the first day of a pay period when they
we
actually.
haven't.
Yeah,
And there's
so-
nothing that says that
Because
that
we are-
will happen. This would just be saying that we wouldn't do it
Yeah,
going forward, more just as
yeah.
just trying to take care of, future employees as best we can.
I believe that would be better included in an SOG rather than in contract
Okay.
for the hire date. Just because we don't
certainly
delineate
are.
hire dates, I would hate to make the
Yeah, and
contact
we
bigger.
just want to make sure that that is recognized and that we will or can address it in some way. Just to,
I guess it's odd because this going to what we're going to is the standard for almost every employer around. What we do is very weird. So it's kind of what they're coming from, because that means when they leave their employer, they have a week or a 2 week delay in their check. So they are still getting pay after they have left.
Okay.
So there is a buffer there based on their time worked, unless their employer is a cut check on last day, which is pretty rare.
yeah, and I understand that it's the standard, industry standard, but if there's a small thing that we can do to make it better than the standard, that doesn't really cost anything.
All that does is
think we
delay
should-
academies and hiring.
Well, we have the option to decide when we do it. So, I mean,
Well,
we could
then
do it a
let's
week later,
leave
a week
that-
earlier.
Let's leave that option out of the contract then and do it through SOG. I don't think the city needs to get in the middle of the fire department scheduling of academies.
And that's fine. We just need to make sure that it's recognized.
Well, I can't agree to an SOG at the table. That's between,
Okay.
And I understand that. I'm just saying, like, we've discussed it here in this setting, and so as long as we're all recognizing it, we can deal with it in another way.
Yeah.
but a discussion at the table doesn't guarantee an SOG change. So I'm not sure that this discussion helps in any way. I just want to be clear that if we go into an MOU and then the SOG does not occur, the MOU will still stand without any shift
Yeah,
there.
and that is
I just want to be
understood.
transparent. We're
Yeah,
I'm
we-
not
we
trying to
understand that.
shell game this.
Yep. Okay, so those are the big concerns we had with that one.
For those two.
Yep. So moving on to the increase in staffing. We just had a couple questions that we would like to talk about. So and this might be for the chief, in the event of a layoff, if the funds were not able to cover people, would the intent be to staff that ambulance with existing employees or with existing members and reduce our in-town response to staff that ambulance full-time, or would we reduce the days that we're staffing that ambulance down there?
I guess we would have to evaluate the impact. The call volume in South County, as you know, is quite less. And I apologize, I should have had the numbers. I believe the call volume in South County constitutes only about 6% of the call volume. And so we would have to really evaluate whether it made sense to draw down resources, if that's what you're referring to, in North County, where, is 94% of our call volume, to have an ambulance potentially sitting in South County, which, may service a lower number of calls. That's going to place a disproportionate burden on North County. We're going to have more call overlap, and that would probably be a bigger impact to service. And so while I don't know that I can give you a clear answer of exactly what we're going to do, I think we want to be cognizant of our response system-wide. And so I don't think that we would probably draw down North County to have an ambulance in South County, but it's certainly on the table. The commissioners certainly have a stake in determining how we deliver service, but I think it makes sense that if we have a shortage, that we deploy our resources to the greatest need. So.
Okay. Did that answer your?
I think so. Yeah, one of the biggest concerns was that this venture is, while we understand the importance of it, we want to make sure that it is funded to supply what we need out there, and that we're not drawing down resources inside of City of Pocatello as well. So,
one other thing, if layoffs are to occur, the union would like to come to the table to discuss potential options if we end up having to go down that road with this specific venture.
To what end?
Could we bring?
Maybe just to
Article
discuss
21 back
potential options for if there are creative solutions that we could come up with to maybe not lay off. One of our biggest fears is that we're going to hire people and then something happens and then all of a sudden we have to let these people go. We would like to not go down that path if possible, but we understand that it's definitely something that could potentially happen.
Yeah. Certainly, that's not our intent either.
Yeah, and we
we've
get that.
been, we have been conservative with our estimates, but we're just trying to ensure that we don't go down a road
Up for a second.
that leads us to a shortfall that we can't compensate for. And so, we're not anticipating that we're going to lay off, but we're just trying to ensure.
Would there be a benefit to waiting a little bit longer to hire, or do you have an anticipation of knowing what those funds would be come our normal hiring time?
And really, the concern, we're pretty comfortable with FY '26. It's just ensuring we hit our revenue estimates, ensuring that this other program comes through as we've budgeted, this GEMT program. And if those things stay in place as we build the FY '27 budget, that's really going to be the decision point, is what we can do moving forward after we see the revenue and the GEMT.
And so as it sits right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 5 new employees is being done with existing funds, and the 6th one would be GMT.
The GEMT funding is about 1 FTE.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys have anything else?
Not specifically.
Be good to see some language.
Are you able to craft some language?
Is there anything else I need to add to that language?
I think those were the big ones, right?
Yeah.
Not much else. I think that's it.
I mean,
Okay.
I imagine there'll be a little bit of revision, but
What?
we need something to.
We need something to do, right?
It's, oh yeah, it's 10:33 and we're gonna go to caucus. Give me about 20 minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah, just shoot me a text when you're.
All right, we're back and it is 10:46 a.m. All right, so here's a draft that covers all of the items we discussed. The changes are highlighted in yellow. And I don't know how to do the MOU for the payroll thing, so it's just listed at the bottom as MOU.
Well,
You guys have any questions? Adam, Sam?
not yet.
Can we get an electronic copy as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys good? We're gonna go talk about it for a minute.
All right, we're going to caucus at 10:49.
Thank you.
We're back. It's 11:06.
Sounds like we got a hard stop time here in a little bit, so we'll reschedule another session if that's okay.
I'll send you some times for early next week.
Okay, very good.
All right, and we're done at 11:06. Thank you, Jen.